How does a team watch a rookie light up practice with NFL-level throws, then act like he doesn't exist? That's the question burning through Cleveland right now. One quarterback is dropping perfect spirals that make veteran receivers stop and stare, and the other is stumbling through reps and taking game-changing sacks. Yet the coaching staff's response has been silence, deflection, and strangely rehearsed answers. The clip that started all of this spread like wildfire. Shedeur Sanders uncorking throws with timing, placement, and zip that scream franchise caliber. Fans slowed the footage frame by frame, pointing at footwork, release, and anticipation. Online, the reactions flipped from excitement to outrage overnight. Meanwhile, separate clips of Dillon Gabriel, awkward footwork, a stumble on the sideline, and in-game mistakes. Created a contrast so stark, it forced everyone to ask whether the coaches were seeing the same thing. Local reporters began connecting dots. Pressers with guarded language, a veteran beat writer noticing the absence of a single name, and a media narrative building around whether the organization is protecting a plan or avoiding a controversy. Rumors suggest motives ranging from politics to patience to plain stubbornness, but none of it is confirmed. That uncertainty is the glue holding this story together. So here's the real hook. If Shedeur is already showing this level of talent, why hasn't he been given a true chance? The answer, whatever it is, will change everything in Cleveland. The entire controversy didn't begin with a press conference or a leaked report. It began with a single moment of practice caught on Flip the Browns fan base upside down. In that snippet, Shedeur Sanders delivered a throw that didn't just look good, it looked special. The kind of throw that makes even seasoned quarterbacks look twice. Smooth footwork, balanced posture, an effortless wrist snap, and a spiral so tight it looked digitally enhanced. The ball sliced through the air and landed perfectly in stride, hitting the receiver with precision you normally see from top-tier veterans. But what really ignited the storm was the reaction around him. Rumors suggest teammates literally paused their drills. A few players turned heads the second the ball left his hand. Even coaches, normally stone-faced during reps, seemed to track the flight of that throw longer than usual. Fans who dissected the footage frame by frame pointed out everything. The timing, the release angle, the anticipation before the receiver even broke on his route. Suddenly, talk shifted from rookie project to why isn't he competing for more reps? Then more clips surfaced, longer ones, cleaner ones. Sanders working through progressions with poise. Sanders dropping deep balls with effortless touch. Sanders throwing with confidence, rhythm, and control. None of it looked accidental. None of it looked like luck. And certainly none of it looked like a fifth-round quarterback struggling to adjust to the NFL. If anything, it looked like someone who had been ready much sooner than the league expected. But here's where things got strange. As the footage went viral and fans flooded comment sections with excitement, the Browns coaching staff responded with nothing. No praise, no acknowledgement, not even a casual comment about his development. The silence felt intentional, and silence only amplifies controversy. Because if Shedeur Sanders really is looking this sharp behind closed doors, why is the organization acting like they don't want anyone to notice? While Shedeur's clips were turning Browns fans into online detectives, another set of videos began making the rounds. And these ones couldn't have been more different. Instead of crisp footwork, tight spirals, and polished timing, Dillon Gabriel's practice footage told a story that fans struggled to ignore. The first clip that went viral wasn't even a passing rep. It showed Gabriel standing on the sideline, preparing for his turn, when a staff member casually walked past him. That tiny bump, something that wouldn't move most players an inch, sent Gabriel stumbling like he had been blindsided by a defensive end. Fans instantly latched onto it. Some joked he moved like a shopping cart with a crooked wheel. Others compared him to a Madden character glitching after a low-energy collision. It was harmless humor, but the underlying message was clear. Something felt off. Then came more clips. Footage where Gabriel's timing looked a tick late. Reps where his feet seemed rushed, almost panicked. A throw that died early. Another that sailed high. None of these clips were catastrophic on their own, but in the shadow of Shedeur's laser precision highlights, the contrast grew sharper with every passing hour. And the real fuel? The in-game moments. Fans remembered the sacks he took in critical situations. 4th and 1 hesitation. The end-of-half meltdown, where he held the ball instead of throwing it away, nearly costing the team points. Instead of fading, those mistakes resurfaced online right alongside the practice footage. Forming a narrative the organization clearly wasn't ready to address. But the strangest detail wasn't Gabriel's performance. It was how hard the coaching staff was working to defend him. Reports claimed they praised his processing, leadership, and command of the offense, while offering zero acknowledgement of what fans were actually seeing on film. That disconnect became the spark that sent social media into overdrive. Because once you see two quarterbacks trending for opposite reasons, one for flashes of brilliance, the other for unsettling inconsistency, the question becomes unavoidable. Why does it feel like the Browns are protecting one quarterback while pretending the other doesn't exist? As the fan base exploded with theories and frustration, Cleveland's sports media finally stepped into the chaos, and that's when the entire situation took a sharp, breaking, unexpected turn. Reporters who have covered the Browns through decades of instability, false starts, quarterback carousels, and coaching drama began noticing patterns the average fan wouldn't catch. And once they connected those dots, the narrative shifted from weird to deeply suspicious. It started with a simple observation. Across multiple press conferences, Kevin Stefanski was being asked routine questions about the quarterback room. Questions he has answered 1,000 times in his career. Except now, something was off. Reporters noticed he wasn't mentioning Shedeur Sanders by name. Not once. Not in passing. Not when prompted. Not even accidentally. It felt intentional, like the name was being avoided on purpose. That oddity alone might have been brushed off, until veteran radio host Tony Rizzo decided to rewind the tape. He combed through 8 separate pressers and found the same thing repeating over and over. Stefanski never said Shedeur's name a single time. Not one acknowledgement. Not even a generic compliment. For a quarterback on the active roster, that level of avoidance is unheard of. Then, Mary Kay Cabot chimed in. Known for her careful reporting style, she began dropping subtle hints in her coverage, noting Sanders' improvement, mentioning strong moments in practice, and highlighting increased confidence. But notably, she did so without quoting the coaching staff. Her tone alone suggested she was seeing a different quarterback than the one being publicly ignored. That's when the narrative began to morph from Shedeur is looking good to why is the team downplaying him? Fans wondered if the Browns were trying to avoid a full-blown controversy. Others speculated the staff didn't want pressure building around a rookie too quickly. And some believed internal politics were guiding public messaging more than on-field performance. Whatever the reason, the media's involvement made one thing undeniably clear. Cleveland wasn't just dealing with a quarterback debate. They were dealing with a communications blackout. By the time reporters started questioning the silence, the Browns' coaching staff found themselves under a spotlight they clearly didn't want. Instead of easing concerns or adding clarity, their behavior only deepened the mystery and made fans wonder whether something much bigger was happening behind the scenes. Kevin Stefanski, usually controlled and measured with the media, suddenly seemed evasive. When asked about the quarterback competition, he gave answers so vague they sounded copy-pasted. Generalities like, everyone's developing, we like our room, and we're focused on the next game, replaced direct, meaningful comments. Reporters asked about specific plays Shedeur made in practice, and Stefanski dodged everyone. Even when questions practically spoon-fed him opportunities to praise Shedeur, he steered the conversation elsewhere. Then offensive coordinator Tommy Rees stepped up to the podium and made things even more confusing. He spent nearly the entire session defending Dillon Gabriel, praising his leadership, his communication, his understanding of the playbook. But noticeably absent, any acknowledgement of his actual on-field results. Not one comment about the sacks, not one explanation for the hesitation on key downs, not one mention of the viral practice clips everyone had already seen. And through all of this, neither coach spoke Shedeur Sanders' name, not once. To fans, it didn't feel like caution. It felt coordinated, like the organization had a script, like everyone in the building had agreed to pretend a rising rookie wasn't turning heads in practice. Reports began surfacing of internal alignment and protecting long-term development plans, but those phrases only fueled speculation. If Shedeur truly wasn't ready, why not simply say so? If the team had full confidence in Gabriel, why go out of their way to avoid discussing the alternative? Some fans believed the coaches were trying to keep pressure off a young quarterback. Others thought the staff had made up their minds months earlier and didn't want reality disrupting the plan. But the most vocal theory suggested the team was avoiding controversy because admitting Shedeur was excelling would force them to address the uncomfortable truth about Gabriel's struggles. Whatever the reason, one thing was unmistakable. The staff's silence wasn't steady leadership. It was a sign of something they weren't ready to reveal. Up to this point, everything about the quarterback controversy could have been written off as fan overreaction or social media exaggeration. Practice clips can be misleading. Viral moments can get taken out of context. And coaches being vague isn't exactly breaking news. But all of that changed the moment the games began exposing problems that could no longer be hidden or spun. Dillon Gabriel's issues weren't just happening in controlled practice environments. They were happening under real NFL pressure, in real situations, with the outcome of games on the line. And when you're a rookie quarterback trying to win over a fan base and a locker room, those moments matter more than anything else. The first moment that sent the fan base into meltdown mode came on a critical 4th and 1, deep in enemy territory. It was the kind of down and distance that even high school quarterbacks can manage. Quick snap, decisive action, move the chains. Instead, Gabriel hesitated, froze, and took a sack so drive-killing that some fans said it felt like the stadium air got sucked out in a single instant. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a mental lapse that screamed, "Not ready." Then came the second disaster. 12 seconds left in the half. No timeouts. The only job, stop the clock. Either spike it or throw it away. Instead, Gabriel held the ball, drifted, panicked, and took another completely avoidable sack that nearly wiped away free points. Only a chaotic, suddenly, those awkward practice clips didn't feel so random. They felt like symptoms. And while Gabriel faltered on game day, fans kept replaying Sanders' preseason flashes. The tight spirals, the calm pocket movement, the anticipation throws, side by side, the comparison wasn't just noticeable, it was impossible to ignore. The turning point wasn't that Gabriel made mistakes. The turning point was that every mistake made the coaching staff's silence about Shedeur feel less like caution and more like denial. Because once the game tape exposed the truth, how much longer could Cleveland pretend they didn't see it? By the time those game-changing mistakes went viral, the quarterback conversation was no longer just a debate. It had become a full-blown uprising. Cleveland fans have endured decades of disappointment at the position, so when they see a pattern forming, they don't stay quiet. They analyze, they argue, and most importantly, they demand answers. This time was no different. Social media turned into a battlefield overnight. One side insisted Gabriel was a developmental project who needed patience. The other side flooded the timeline with slowed-down practice clips of Shedeur making NFL-level throws, asking why the team was pretending the competition didn't exist. And in between those voices were thousands of fans who simply felt confused, like they were watching two different realities inside the same franchise. That's when the theories started spreading, and each one caught fire faster than the last. Some fans believed the Browns had already committed internally to Gabriel and didn't want to derail the long-term plan. Others thought the coaching staff feared that acknowledging Shedeur's rise would force a decision they weren't ready to make. Then there were the whispers about locker room reactions. Nothing confirmed, nothing solid, but the kind of subtle hints reporters love to drop. Players reacting differently to each quarterback. Receivers noticeably more animated after certain throws. Energy shifting depending on who stepped into the huddle. Even the business side got pulled into the conversation. The Sanders name moves merchandise. It spikes engagement. It sells tickets. Rumors suggested team officials were thrilled at the buzz, whether it came from hype or controversy. A rookie generating headlines before even getting consistent reps? From a business standpoint, that's a goldmine. But fans weren't interested in business angles. It felt like the organization was trying to steer the narrative one way, while the footage was pulling it in the opposite direction. And just when the speculation reached its boiling point, a familiar voice in Cleveland decided he'd had enough. And what he said next sent shockwaves through the entire city. Cleveland fans know chaos. They've lived through it for years, but even they weren't prepared for what happened next. Because when veteran radio host Tony Rizzo finally spoke up, he didn't just join the conversation, he detonated it. Rizzo isn't a click chaser. He isn't a shock jock. He's a Cleveland lifer who has watched this franchise through more quarterback disasters than any fan should ever have to endure. So when he sees something wrong, he says it plainly, and that's exactly what he did. First, he pointed out the obvious. The silence around Shedeur Sanders wasn't normal. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't a coincidence the coaching staff forgot to mention his name in 8 straight press conferences. According to Rizzo, this wasn't oversight. It was strategy. His exact sentiment? When a coach stops making sense, that's the beginning of the end. That line hit Cleveland like a lightning strike. But Rizzo didn't stop there. He dug deeper, suggesting that Kevin Stefanski might be in a mental space coaches rarely admit publicly. The phase where you're so burned out, so fed up with internal politics, so numb to pressure that you stop worrying about what people think. The "I dare them to fire me" stage. A theory like that doesn't come lightly, especially from someone who's been covering the Browns for decades. Fans weren't sure whether to panic or agree, because the signs? They were all there. The overly defensive praise for Gabriel, the energy in his pressers that suggested a man exhausted by questions he didn't want to answer. Whether Rizzo was right or wrong, the possibility alone changed the tone of the entire controversy. And suddenly, the debate wasn't just about quarterbacks anymore. It was about leadership, direction, accountability, a team searching for stability in a season slipping away. Rizzo's interpretation didn't solve the mystery, it magnified it. Because if a respected voice believes something deeper is brewing inside the Browns facility, what does that say about the decisions being made behind closed doors? By this point, the Browns weren't dealing with a simple quarterback debate. They were dealing with a full-blown identity crisis. Every new detail, every press conference, every viral clip added another layer to a mystery that nobody inside the building seemed willing to explain. And when a franchise refuses to clarify what the entire world can see unfolding in real time, people start filling in the blanks themselves. Some fans believe the answer is simple. The Browns committed early to Dillon Gabriel and don't want to derail their plan. In the NFL, coaches often anchor themselves to their preseason evaluations, even when new information comes along that challenges everything they thought they knew. It's not uncommon, but in this situation, it feels like fighting reality. Others think the team is trying to protect Shedeur Sanders. Rumors suggest they'll want to throw him into a media frenzy too quickly. After all, being the son of Deion Sanders comes with pressure. Maybe the Browns want to shield him from the spotlight until he's fully prepared, until the moment feels right, not forced. But then there's the theory that refuses to die: internal politics. Reports claim there may be philosophical disagreements behind the scenes about the depth chart, player development timelines, and how the organization wants to shape its future. In a league where jobs, reputations, and millions of dollars hinge on one decision, it's not hard to imagine tension brewing. And when a young quarterback starts turning heads unexpectedly, those tensions can rise fast. Some fans have even suggested that Stefanski's job security plays a bigger role than anyone's admitting. A coach under pressure tends to lean on comfort, familiarity, and control. Shedeur Sanders is playing well enough behind closed doors that the entire football world is demanding answers, and Cleveland can't hide from that forever. So the real question, the one hanging over the entire franchise like a storm cloud, is simple. What happens next? Does the organization finally embrace the momentum surrounding Sanders? Or do they continue resisting a decision that seems more inevitable by the day? At this point, the Browns aren't just juggling a quarterback dilemma. They're standing at a crossroads that could define the trajectory of the entire franchise. On one side is Dillon Gabriel, the quarterback the staff publicly defends, the player they seem determined to prop up, and the guy they insist is still part of the long-term plan. On the other side is Shedeur Sanders. The rookie they refuse to acknowledge publicly, yet can't hide behind closed doors. A rookie whose every throw, every rep, and every rumor has turned into fuel for one of the most intense debates the city has seen in years. But what makes this moment so much bigger than a QB controversy is what's at stake. Cleveland has lived through decades of instability at the position. Names have come and gone: Couch, Quinn, Whedon, Manziel, Kaiser, each one greeted with hope, each one leaving the city wanting more. Browns fans aren't desperate for flash or hype. They're desperate for stability, for a quarterback who isn't just a placeholder, but a building block, someone who can pull this franchise out of the cycle of uncertainty. And that's why Shedeur's rise feels different. Because for the first time in a long time, Cleveland fans aren't rooting for a miracle. They're reacting to what they can actually see. The poise, the footwork, the arm talent, the flashes that don't feel accidental. Add in the media noticing strange patterns, the coaching silence, and the growing suspicion that something deeper is happening within the organization, and the story becomes impossible to ignore. The Browns can delay the decision. They can dodge questions. They can avoid saying his name. But none of that stops the momentum. None of it stops the pressure. And none of it stops the reality that the fan base, the locker room, and the league are all watching this situation unfold with heightened curiosity. Because eventually, whether through injury, performance, or undeniable talent, Shedeur Sanders will get his moment. And when he does, it won't just answer a football question. It will reveal exactly what kind of team the Cleveland Browns want to be.